Hi, students. Today we're going to look at this piece of text titled Lost Treasure. And while we're reading, we're going to be looking at the different types of figurative language that are included in the text. So remember that we have hyperbole, alliteration, onomatopoeia, similes, metaphors, and personification. And also we have something called idioms. So we're going to look for those different types of figurative language in this text while we're reading. It's Captain Squidlegs here, and this is my tale of how I lost old Blackbeard's treasure. I had to travel all the way to the Isle of Stubble, the home of Blackbeard and his mangy pirates. In order to get the treasure, Blackbeard and I had to make a friendly wager. I bet my ship and all my men, and Blackbeard put up his massive chest of treasure. Luckily, I'm no stranger to a game of cards, and I quickly outfoxed the old pirate in a few hands of old maid. Just as I was collecting my prize, a powerful storm suddenly blew in. It was so strong that it nearly swept old Blackbeard's mustache straight off his face. It took 6 of my men to carry the chest back to the ship, and this was a mighty chest indeed. Old Blackbeard's chest looked like a giant oyster that had opened its shell to spew out all it held within. In this case, it didn't hold a single pearl, but armloads of gold, gems, and precious stones. So, hear this word like a giant oyster that had opened its shell to spew out all it held within. Well, that's a simile because it uses the word like. And so it's trying to show us, the reader, what this would look like in real life. It would be this huge giant oyster, which is kind of like a circular shell. And when it opens up, it had all of these gold and gems and stones inside of it. But if it's a giant oyster, that means it's huge, it's big. As we pushed off to sea, the wind and waves fought to push us back to shore. Wind and waves do not fight. So this is a type of personification because they're giving the wind and the waves human qualities. So it just means the wind and waves fought to push us back to shore. So the wind and the waves, they're very strong and they're kind of tossing that boat around, and it's very hard for the boat to get out to sea. The storm was an angry dragon attacking the ship. Again, another piece of figurative language. Um, was an angry dragon. So that would be a metaphor. The storm it's strong, and so it's attacking the ship, and it's trying to help us as a reader visualize what that storm looks like, and it's kind of just tossing that boat around in the ocean. Each wave that broke over the deck was a whip from the dragon's tail, knocking my men off their feet. Again, another piece of figurative language. Was the deck was a whip. That's going to be a metaphor. Each wave that broke over the deck was a whip from the dragon's tail, knocking my men off their feet. So as a reader, it's helping me to visualize this wave is like slamming down on the boat. It's knocking the men off. That's how powerful it was. It's like a dragon's tail. It's heavy and it's coming straight down, and it's just going to slam on top of the boat. The wind gusts were blasts of air from the dragon's mighty wings that tossed the ship in every direction. Again, the wind gusts were blasts of air. That's another metaphor. They were blasts of air from the dragon's mighty wings. So if a dragon, if he would be flapping his wings, that air would be whipping up against that boat, and he was being tossed in every direction. So the boat, I'm picturing it kind of just getting tossed around on the out on the ocean and being whipped around by the wind. Our soggy, sinking, stinking ship struggled to stay afloat, and we were taking on water. That figurative, like that sentence, is alliteration. And so the author is repeating those S's: soggy, sinking, stinking ship, struggle to stay afloat. And in our mind, it's helping us to describe what this boat looks like. It's mangled, it's sinking, it's broken from the wind and the waves. It's taking on water, but it's just really helping us to visualize what has happened to this boat. They're struggling to stay afloat. So I would see it kind of maybe almost half sunk into the water. The only hope was to throw overboard an extra weight. In the end, the only 3 men helped me heave the giant chest of treasure into the sea. I'll be honest and I'll tell you, there are a few pirates I would have rather thrown overboard than that treasure chest. However, dumping that heavy chest was our only hope of survival. I'm sad to report that not all of my men lived through that fight with the storm, and neither did old Blackbeard's treasure. Though the ship was lighter without the heavy chest, the storm eventually smashed the ship to pieces. Luckily, I saw a deserted island and swam to safety. If you ask me, something didn't seem right about that treasure. Maybe old Blackbeard's treasure was cursed. So throughout this piece of text, we had a few different pieces of figurative language. We had metaphors, alliteration, we had similes, and personification. And those pieces of figurative language really helped us as a reader to create this mental image in our mind of what was happening to the boat and to the men on the ship. So figurative language is used to help us as readers visualize what is happening to our characters within our story.